I'm going to bring you guys up to date on this agenda item and also a little bit of history, and then Les is going to come up and he has a PowerPoint and is going to go over the technical aspects of the project for you. Back in November, we brought before you 3 applications that were to be submitted to the local Highway Technical Assistance Council, and they were actually for 3 different projects. They totaled about $1.85 million. It was illumination on 3rd Street from Jackson to approximately Llewellyn, and then illumination on 6th Street from, I want to say, right, I know it wasn't, can't think of the name of the street. It was to Deacon from about where the URA property ends, I think it was, or right in there, where the Wells Fargo.
Allman,
yes, thank you. And then also the 6th Street turning lane, which was kind of our key project in that. At the time, all 3 of those projects met the requirements as we read the guidelines under the local highway safety improvement plan or program. And within that program, it said that you could use lighting improvements. There were actually assignments given to it in the cost-benefit analysis that you could do. And we submitted all 3 of those projects and actually had a visit with staff of the LTAC folks shortly before they had their board review, and said that, you know, our 6th Jackson project had scored relatively high. And after the board meeting, we got a call from them, and they shared with us that our 6th and Jackson project was within the list of projects that they would be recommending to the ITD board for approval. However, the Federal Highways people that reviewed applications with them had said that lighting improvements, if you were replacing or adding to existing lighting, wasn't eligible. That was not made clear. We had never applied for something like that in the past, and it was an anomaly to them also. They had done some other projects, but there were only new lighting, and so they had never ran across this program or this problem. So they told us the other 2 applications for the illumination on 3rd Street and 6th and Jackson, or I mean on 6th Street, were not eligible. However, they did share with us there was some ways to kind of get around that. At that time, we didn't have that discussion. They invited us back to submit the 6th and Jackson application in the next round, which is what we're presenting to you tonight, but a separate project, because it would not have been able to be built until FY19 or 20, and that would be too late for us to move forward with the 6th and Jackson turning lane project with the developments going on in that area for the URA. So, you know, we weren't happy about not having any of those projects funded. It was the first time they had seen ITD actually rearrange their recommendation list, and this was for that huge pot of one-time funding under the LHSIP that they had, and they shared that there were some a bit of changes made by the ITD board at the time when the list was submitted to them during the meeting. So not something that normally happens, however it did on this occasion, just when we happen to have our projects in there. So, however, we have received our fair share, and that, you know, is a good way to look at it. So, we were not able then to get a phone call with them to discuss another project until the 11th of January, and so that is why you're seeing this come before you tonight rather than going to committee first. So last Wednesday, we spoke with the leadership there who reviews the applications at LTAC, and we went over the project that you have before you tonight and talked about how it can be structured so that we can include lighting and also the other safety improvements based upon the existing crashes and all the requirements that they put in place, and submit it with the cost-benefit analysis based upon the data that we have regarding accidents, pedestrian accidents, those types of things. So in looking at the corridor, they also shared with us that we could submit 2 projects in one funding round. They will only award 1. However, if there's a chance that something falls out of the queue or no other entities within our district were to apply, they could possibly fund 2. So in your CCSR that we submitted to you, we talked about an $800,000 project. With the further analysis of staff, and Les will go over this with you in his PowerPoint, we've broken it into 2 separate projects, a Phase 1 and a Phase 2. And an adjustment or a modification that we need to make to the CCSR is that the projects total $805,000. So our request tonight to you would be to submit 2 projects with a total of $805,000 maximum project costs. That would bring the city match at 7.34% to $59,087. And as I said, Les is going to go over those, but to break it down, the Phase 1 project, which would be from State Highway 8 or Jackson to 155 feet east of Lilly, will be $477,000. And then the Phase 2 project will be $328,000, and it will be from Llewellyn to 155 feet east of Lilly. So that's a total of $805,000. And I think, let me just check my notes here to make sure I shared with you everything I wanted to. If we were awarded this project, design would happen in FY19 and construction in FY20. And if we were awarded both, we can roll that second application into the next round. Automatically it gets submitted, but we'll resubmit if we aren't funded both. There's a possibility that we could design and build together based upon how the funding rolls, even though they may not be approved in the same year. So it could happen. It would be better if they were approved in the same year. Possibly if they were awarded, we could make the choice to build them in the same year and do design in separate years. So there's some alternatives to this, but I think it's a very good approach. Individually, they're combined, it's too large of a project to submit. Based upon the cost-benefit analysis, the ratios would not work out. So in order to be within the parameters, they don't tell us there's a maximum project cost amount, but we look back at the history of what's been funded and what the cost-benefit analysis says, and it's too large as one project. So I'll go ahead and let Les go over the
Before
yes.
Les goes over that, Walter had a question, I think, for
Yes.
Lisa. Somebody asked.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, Lisa, I think I'm lost. We previously submitted a package of 3 projects.
Yes.
They liked the 6th and Jackson. They said no at the federal level to the lighting on 6th. And they said what on the 3rd Street project?
They said no to the illumination only because we worded it as replacement.
Okay. Now we're turning around and going to do 3rd Street in 2 pieces because the one piece has been deemed too large, and it includes lighting.
New lighting.
It has lighting.
This is
I don't know the
technical
difference.
aspect.
Let me jump into that one, because we get into the scope of the project a little bit. Maybe I can answer your question. So the where did the mouse go? There it is. It's hiding. Okay. The project, as Elisa has indicated, is along the 3rd Street corridor, and this map's a little bit large scale to pick it all out, and we'll zoom in a bit. But just to help orient you a little bit, this is the 3rd Street corridor running from the Jackson Street area out to the Llewellyn intersection. It is broken into 2 phases, as she indicated, so these black boxes show the outline of those phases. The first one being the easterly portion and then continuing on to the west. So we'll zoom in a bit and talk about these and what's in the projects. So first phase really starts at the Jackson corridor, Jackson Street intersection. This is the old gas station site, so now we have that shiny new cafe going in there.
Looks like the bus.
Yeah, and the bus parked there in that particular photo. That's true, right there. The extent of the work would start at that intersection and work its way over past Asbury and really to the alley. That's at the western edge here. It's a combination of sidewalk and curb installation and new lighting installations where there is currently not lighting. And to help point that out a little bit, we'll zoom in a little further. So this is the east end of the job. So again, Jackson's right here. There is new sidewalk that would be constructed. This is kind of this purple here that you see on the south and north sides. So all new sidewalk with some new curbing in those areas. This is shown as previously installed, but that is the work that's going on right now with the new restaurant happening. This is existing and would not be changed on the north side. So new sidewalks and new curb lines along here. These blue symbols here represent where new lights would go in, and we'd be using the vintage style LED lights that we have on College and in front of the MSI property on Jackson, so of that nature. Now we have existing lights, like this red one right here, that would not be part of the project. So that's how you get around the replacement aspect that Elisa referred to.
Would they stay in place?
They would likely not stay in place, but they would be something that we would need to fund ourselves and to be constructed at the same time as the project. That's the concept.
To take them out?
To take them out, put in the same style of lights, but it would be funded purely through city money rather than through the grant for that portion of the work.
If I may, take them out and replace them as well? So the stylistic lights, or whatever we call them, would go in place of the two red,
Here and here.
3, 4, I guess I see 4, 1, 2,
One
3,
there.
4.
Right, in this section.
So those,
Yeah, that's
those
the thought.
those 4 reds out of our nickel, not project money,
Correct.
would be taken out but replaced with the stylistic lights.
Yes.
It
That's
would
the idea.
match the other ones.
It matches the 4 blue ones you're going to get in.
Yeah,
within the
so the concept here is we're applying for a grant to fund what is an eligible expense. So that would be
Okay.
the curbs, the sidewalks, and those areas, those lights that are not replacements, just new. The project, when we construct it, what we'd propose is to then include those non-eligible lights, but those would then be funded by city funds rather than through the grant.
Which
But
is in
constructed
addition
at
to the
same time.
7% match requirement.
That is correct. So we would have the added cost of those replacement lights that would go along the corridor. The lights that are out there today, those that are shown in red, are just the traditional Cobra head metal arm off of a wooden pole, typical Vista-style lights that we have throughout the community. So we would want to replace those with the vintage-style lights, just like the rest of the new lights that are being installed as part of the grant funding. So that's how that would work in terms of the grant money versus city money to end up with a complete corridor, sidewalks, and vintage lights throughout.
Okay,